from last game, just looking at it, kind of what we talked about after the game. Some opportunities in there. I thought the defense again played very well. The turnover battle, we still need to find a way to come out on top in that area. So we'll work on those things. Consistency on the offensive side. Certainly opportunities to go out there and make some plays. And guys did a good job in the second half. We're going to have to continue to do that for 4 quarters. Players of the game on offense was McNichols. He was back-to-back Mountain West Player of the Week. So that's a great honor for him, for what he's been able to accomplish. Those guys blocking for him as well. The defensive player was Jonathan Moxie. On the offensive line was Stephen Baggett. D-line, we had 2. Coach Caldwell couldn't come up with 1. And we'd only do this for Coach Caldwell. We had 2 defensive linemen. So Sam McCaskill and David Moa both played extremely well. And the hard hat special teams went to Ryan Wolpen. So going into this week, a little bit quicker turnaround, 1 day. So these schedules certainly you got to prepare just a little bit differently, and we'll get back after it today. These guys did a good job of coming in on Sunday, getting their bodies ready, preparing themselves, getting a workout in, spending time yesterday watching film and getting themselves into the game plan. All right, what to expect from their opponent. New Mexico 2-2, a very good football team. Obviously they run the ball very well, 347 yards per game, but they're throwing it as well, and they can certainly do that. They're scoring 38 points a game, which puts them first in our conference. Lamar Jordan, I think the guy's a really good football player and does a lot of really special things out there, especially when the play breaks down. They have a system, they're very good at it, and then like in any offensive play, there's going to be breakdowns and how do these guys extend plays. He does a really good job of that. And so he shows ability to do things and be creative when things aren't going exactly as planned. Gibson, their running back, number 7, he's very fast. He's physical, and we saw him last year. We got a chance to see his speed when he took one against us around the corner there. And so, you know, those guys they do a good job. They do a good job schematically. They seem to have answers when you go out there and run your defense, and so that's a big challenge for us. Something that we have worked on in the off season. We'll see how that plays out going into the game here. You know, they're second in the nation in rushing yards per game and first in the, like I said before, in our conference scoring. Their defense is top 3 in the Mountain West. 95 has 4 sacks, has done a good job in that area. They'll pressure you. They do a lot of different things on defense, but they will come up and they'll pressure, and they're aggressive and they're physical. Dakota Cox is a good player. We faced him, linebacker, best linebacker on their team, 95. Very good at D-line, and 91 is their leading tackler. All right, and very good player up front. They got 9 returning starters on defense, and 9 of those are seniors. And so there's experience out there when you go play against these guys. And then on special teams, solid. They've done a few things in there, very solid on special teams. They do have a left-footed punter, so a little bit different there. And then most of the kickoffs have been touchbacks, all right, at their place. So we got to be prepared in those areas and obviously come out on special teams and be ready to go. So new challenge this week, and certainly I'm looking forward to it and going to play at their place, and looking forward to getting back out there in the field with our guys and getting these guys prepared and ready and excited to go out there and play on Friday. So open for questions with that.
After going back and looking at the replay of the Moxie hit, I'm just curious your thoughts there, and you know, not being able to have a chance to have that appealed. What is just your general thought on the rule there that the league and NCAA has?
Yeah, I made a lot of phone calls this week and sent a lot of emails, and you know, one of the things you're coaching these guys to do things the right way. And we certainly teach our guys, and we take a lot of pride in how we tackle. We are doing it within the rules of the game. We're going to make sure that we shoulder tackle, shoulder punch. Guys are going to go low, so we avoid some of those obvious helmet-to-helmet hits, those targeting hits. And this is one of those. It's still football, all right? Bodies are moving, guys are flying around, and you're trying to tell me that in a split second, these guys have to make decisions. And the player at Utah State, it's unfortunate. He got dinged on that play. But these two guys are playing. I don't think either one of them, they're not trying to do that intentionally. And I just think there's got to be an appeals in there where in the heat of the moment, you're talking about coaching, playing, and making decisions as an official. That's not easy. Even in the booth, there's still that intensity and urgency to keep the game going. And I think the appeal is to step back and just go, hey, was this right? Was the intent there for that to happen? Because I think there's targeting, and I think there's ones that aren't. And we just don't have that. And so it's frustrating because that affects your football team, and more importantly, it affects that player. He's going to travel with us. He's going to sit in the locker room for a half, no TV, just sit there in his pads. I don't know what he's going to do. Just get ready and probably be the most fired up guy at halftime, all right, when everybody else comes in there. But he's a good player, and you don't want to see it. I think the rule is in place, and I think it's a very good rule. I also think it's football, and there's got to be some voice of reason in that as well. But it is what it is, and other guys are going to have to step up. This is not an injury, but in football too, you have injuries, and somebody else has to carry the flag, and we'll do that. Ray Ford, Tyler Horton, those guys will step up. DeAndre Pierce, he'll step up, and then we'll have Jonathan back in the second half. So a little frustrating, and I think that the people I spoke with too feel the same way. It's just, how do we now go back and try to better our process? It's not about the decision any longer. And I always think of, how can we make processes better? And that really, to me, is what I talked to a few about is how can I help? What can we do? How can we take this to where, I don't care who it is, another player gets a chance to come back into play, if that's not the intent of targeting that he was trying to go out there and use.
I think you've probably been asked this since December and then into the spring, but working on the option and stuff like that.
Sure.
I know the approach maybe was a little different this year. You guys tried to hammer it a bit in the spring, so it kind of trickled down to when you could recall it now. How has the approach been different, and how do you think that it's worked so far for you guys?
Well, we don't know how it's worked yet. All right, we've done it. We've prepared for it. A little bit like Washington State, we prepared for the air raid. That's not what we do, so we have to go out there and try to simulate that in practice. So you're seeing, in our schedule, we're seeing pro style, we're seeing air raid, we're seeing triple option, we're seeing a true triple option. You're seeing, heavy set run team, San Jose State, Colorado State. It's just there's so much variety. So you really add that into your prep like the other type of offenses we're going to face. This is one. I think the key is, you understand the concept of it, but their players do a very good job of it. And that's where it comes down to. There's going to be one-on-one matchups. You got to make the one-on-one plays, and so do they. They've also got to make those one-on-one plays as well. And I think that's what it comes down to. But Coach Avalos, the D staff, those guys are doing a great job preparing. And so we have hit some of this in spring. We hit some of it in fall camp, and then now I think you're able to recall that a little bit faster going into short week. We knew we had a short week, and one of the reasons why we hit it, when you looked at our schedule, also you're going to have a short week and just your 3 days to prep or 4 days, whatever that is. You got to be ready for a different style coming off the teams we just played, and now you go into this. But our guys will focus up this week. They'll be figuring out what their assignments are, and then it's just a matter of being consistent and going out there and doing your job. I think it's the simplest way to put it.
You brought up Lamar Jordan a little bit earlier. I think he's only thrown 19 passes this year, but he's done a lot of running. Obviously, they have Apodaca too, who's done most of the throwing. Do you kind of key in on? Are you just expecting when Jordan's in that he's going to be the runner and Apodaca is going to be doing the throwing? How do you kind of approach this?
Yeah, I think you could say that statistically, and certainly look at it like that. But I watched Lamar; he can throw it. That's one of the things. If you're going to sit there and say the guy can't spin it, he certainly can, and the other guy can't run, he certainly can. So they've got two good players, that they're utilizing, and every week they got to look too at the different defensive schemes and how they want to attack it, and even some of their personnel. How are these guys after the last game? Are they banged up? There's always that side of it that nobody ever gets. We're preparing for both, and certainly know their strengths, but also know they're capable of each one of them of also running and throwing and preparing for that. So it doesn't come down to necessarily them, it comes down to us doing our job and our keys.
About Moxie, he can't watch TV, nothing in there, and then
I think he can. I don't know if they have one. I guess we could bring one. I don't know. I don't know what's in the locker room there.
Okay.
So if they have one, certainly we're not packing one on the trip, but we'll figure it out.
Okay, with DSG, you get him back this week. Andy mentioned that the week prior he was the scout team player